Well, this has taken a really long time, hasn't it? But it does look like the Nazi pug case has finally come to an end. Sadly, we did not get the result we were looking for, but some good did come from all of this. But first, let me explain exactly what happened throughout the whole process of the trial, as well as some of the shady stuff that went down. But before we get started, we have a new sponsor. Coffee Brand Coffee. Coffee Brand Coffee serves people who are sick of gimmicky coffee companies who offer political marketing instead of just doing their job and selling you a truly great fresh roasted coffee which comes straight from their roasters to your doorstep. Coffee loses a lot of its flavour in 7 to 10 days after roasting, so Coffee Brand Coffee roasts daily to ensure that the coffee keeps its top tier flavour. And speaking of flavour, Coffee Brand Coffee has plenty for you to choose from. They offer 6 incredible coffee blends from all over the world, with 6 brand new organic loose leaf teas and 3 amazing hot cocoa flavours, with more being added all the time. Coffee Brand Coffee has a focus on sustainable business practice and environmentally friendly production. They pay a premium for coffee because they want the best quality for you and what is fair for the growers, so everyone wins. With over 680 reviews at mostly 5 out of 5, you can check out the reviews to see what other customers have to say about Coffee Brand Coffee's great products. Coffee is their passion, and it's something you will notice both in the taste and quality of every batch you order. There are a lot of coffee options out there, but you will notice the difference after choosing Coffee Brand Coffee. Coffee Brand Coffee is committed to offering you great products that are 100% focused on serving you, the customers. So if you are ready to experience a superior cup of coffee, tea or cocoa, check out coffeebrandcoffee.com and use code Dankula at the checkout to save 5% on a single order or automatically save 10% on all auto refill orders to enjoy their delicious products and support me and support my channel. I know that most of you know this part, but I'll go over it again for those who don't. Back in 2016, I made an absolutely hilarious joke video, greatest joke in the world if you ask me, where I taught my girlfriend's, now wife's, pug to Nazi salute as a joke to upset her and prank her. The video ended up going viral, and then I was arrested by the Fun Police, and I was charged under Section 127 of the Communications Act of 2003 for posting grossly offensive material on social media because, unfortunately, in Britain in 2022, being offensive, something which is 100% completely subjective, is a crime. It's a crime to be offensive in Britain. You would think that this would mean that you can say, I am grossly offended anytime a politician says or does something and then get them arrested. You know, for example, I think that advocating for dragging us into 2 forever wars is grossly offensive, but sadly it doesn't work that way. And for some reason, even all these years later, people still keep making up a bunch of bullshit about what happened in the trial or even what I was charged for, right? What I was charged for was for causing gross offence. That was the charge. It's in the literal act I was charged under. But for some reason, people keep adding in all this extra bullshit that has absolutely nothing to do with the charge. Another interesting thing that I want to point out is I was being absolutely harassed by journalists for days before my arrest. They were harassing my family, they were calling my mum and dad, they were knocking on all of our doors, and that went on for a good number of days. But then all of a sudden, all of that stopped and there were no reporters in the street for a good few days. Until the police came to arrest me, suddenly there were lots of reporters in the street. Apparently, according to some of my neighbours, they actually arrived with the police. They were like in cars behind the police car coming into the street. I just find it extremely strange that reporters knew the exact date and time to turn up to get pictures of me being arrested. Because the only people who would know I was being arrested would be the police. They were the only people who knew. And I definitely sure hope that the police didn't tip off reporters that I was being arrested, because the police need to make a record of any communications they have with journalists. However, no such record exists. So either these journalists were psychic or the police broke the law. I'm not saying they have. I'm just saying, right? I'm just saying that it's very interesting how the journalists knew. However, it did produce one of my favourite ever pictures of myself being dragged out of my house in handcuffs by the CID over a fucking meme. You know, your taxi's at work. And also, I'm laughing my head off in the picture because, well, I was being arrested over a fucking meme, and also I was 3 bongs deep. I was then taken to the station and held in jail overnight next to someone who just 3 hours beforehand had murdered someone. So, you know, that was fun. And I was then released to await my trial, which ended up lasting for over 2 years, you know, twice as long as Nuremberg. During the trial, we stated our case, and there is a massive amount of misinformation of what happened during the trial. So I would like to clear a bunch of that up while I'm at it. People keep saying that we did not make any arguments whatsoever towards my free speech rights. The thing is, we tried to, but we were blocked from it by the very sinister prosecutor. I know, bit of a redundant description, but the prosecutor was saying that I was actually advocating for the deaths of people. That was the argument he was putting forward. He even, at one point, said to the judge, "Picture several football stadiums, all full of people, all being gassed." Like, I shit you not, that he actually said that to the judge. That is the type of stuff he was saying to the judge. Now, when a prosecutor is saying that you wanted to get people killed and you were advocating for violence, you can't turn around to that and say, "But that's my free speech." Like, you can't do that because he is saying that you were inciting violence. You cannot make a free speech defence against incitement to violence. So, first we had to make the arguments that the video itself was clearly a joke and not incitement to violence. But the prosecutor refused to back down. The judge provided no confirmations, so basically we remained locked in that argument for the whole trial and we never moved past it. But that was the prosecutor's plan the entire time. He wanted things that way so we couldn't actually make our free speech arguments. And sadly, it worked. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, Jesus Christ, what an awful way for a prosecutor to act, which leads me to believe that you have no experience of prosecutors whatsoever. Prosecutors are not good people. Prosecutors are not good people. They are not there for justice or fairness. They are there to win by any means necessary, and hyperbolic lies are their bread and butter. Even if the prosecutor knows that you most likely are innocent, it's not his job to prove you're innocent, it's his job to put you in jail. If what you did was worthy of a 4-month sentence, the prosecutor's job is to get you 4 years. I mean, halfway through the trial, the prosecutor actually tried to increase my charge to something more severe, something like racially aggravated harassment or something like that, where instead of a maximum sentence of 1 year in prison, I could have got a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison. Luckily, the judge called him out on pulling that bullshit halfway through the trial, and the judge rejected it. But that's just an example of some of the absolute scumbag tactics this prosecutor used. Another fun thing that happened was my wife received a letter from the police saying, "Appear as a witness against your boyfriend or we'll arrest you." At this point, we weren't married yet, we were only boyfriend and girlfriend, so that meant that the courts could ask her to testify against me, though they didn't really ask. However, when I was applying for legal aid because I couldn't afford the court costs because I lost all of my fucking jobs because of the media coverage, they told me that since my wife had a sum of money in her account from an inheritance, that I was being rejected from getting legal aid. She received that inheritance with a caveat that it be used towards a deposit for a house. I had no legal right to that money whatsoever. She was only my girlfriend at the time, so the system basically told us, "We've decided that you aren't close enough where we are going to force her to testify against you, but we are also deciding that you are close enough where she is responsible for your legal fees. So basically the state was going to force my wife to testify against me and also pay my court costs. Welcome to the Scottish justice system. And also, because my wife wasn't cooperating with the prosecutor while she was testifying, because she's a good wife, he made a bunch of disparaging statements about her intelligence and he made her cry. There's a lot I want to say right now, but I don't want to end up in a courtroom again. Also, every single time I went to court, I was being absolutely harassed by journalists who, on many occasions, were blocking me from getting into the courthouse to go to my own trial. One of them even actually tried to trip my wife up as we were going in. I was obviously getting really angry at all this harassment, so I wasn't very nice to them. Another thing that was said in the closing statements was that the judge rejected that this video was supposed to be a prank on my girlfriend because she wasn't subscribed to my YouTube channel. So how else was she supposed to see the video? Well, that part I can't explain because I've had to do that so many fucking times now. My actual plan for the video was to show it to my wife. Me and her would sometimes sit and watch YouTube videos on the big TV in the living room, and my plan was to go, I know this, like, super funny video. 2 seconds, I'm just going to put it on. And then I was going to sneakily use my phone to record her reaction. She would have got upset and angry. It would have been funny. The prank done its job. Now, Sue wasn't subscribed to my YouTube channel. If she was, then I wouldn't have uploaded the video, because then I run the risk of her seeing it without me there, and I wouldn't be able to see her reaction. And I mean, that's why you do pranks, so you can see the person's reaction, because that's part of what makes the prank funny. However, sadly me and Sue were both very busy, and we didn't get a night to sit and chill and watch YouTube videos, so I never got the chance to sit her down and get a reaction. And then someone found the video and posted it on Reddit, and it went viral, and yeah, you know, it kinda ruined my chance. But Dank, why didn't you explain all of that to the judge then? We did. Several times throughout the course of the trial. The judge just seems to have completely ignored this extremely crucial piece of information which affected his ruling. And unfortunately, people still keep using that bit of misinformation from the judge's closing statement as if it's fact. One of the funniest things I have ever experienced is idiots online trying to tell me what really happened at my trial. Mate, it was my trial. I was there. So I was ultimately found guilty, which, let's just be very honest here, that was already decided before they even put the handcuffs on, right? The whole trial and court thing, that was just to keep up the illusion that we have due process. And in my final closing statement, I got my lawyer to tell the judge that if I was given community service, I would not do it. If I was given a fine, I would not pay it. I will refuse any punishment I am given because I am not a criminal and I was just exercising my rights to freedom of speech. The judge then sentenced me to pay an £800 fine, and I left the court to quite a bit of fanfare. But when it came to the fine, I wasn't going to pay it. I kept getting reminder letters in saying that the money was due, and all of those just went straight in the bin. Then after the due date, the police said that there was now a warrant out for me, so I'm like, whatever, that's fine. Then a few days pass, and then a week, and then 2 weeks, and still no knock at the door, but my wedding was coming up, and I didn't want me being arrested to fuck with the wedding. So I thought I'll just get the arrest over and done with, so I called the cops on myself. So when I spoke to the cops on the phone, I told them, hi there, it's me, you know, the wanted man. Here I am, at this address, come and get me. And then the person on the phone told me that the cops wouldn't come to get me until my name came up on the computer. So me, a wanted criminal, was on the phone to the police and they told me computer says no. Maybe I should have made a joke on the phone. Now what happened next is a bit more shady business. My wife texted me saying that none of the direct debits had come out of her billing account. And when I went to check the account, the cops had actually seized the £800 straight out of my bank account. Also known as stealing. Now, when the cops are going to do that, they are supposed to tell you. However, they broke protocol and didn't tell me, and I have a little bit of a theory as to why. I think the cops just wanted me gone. The police had already lost so much face over arresting someone for a joke that they just wanted this complete farce to be over and done with. And they knew that if they told me they were going to seize the money, I would have emptied the account and closed it. Which, yeah, absolutely would have. Meaning that they would be forced to arrest me again and all of the shit would kick off again. And the cops wanted to avoid that, so they decided to break protocol a little bit and make all of this stuff finally go away. So, as far as they were concerned, it was all over and done with. However, we started the appeals process. The problem is, appeals cost a lot of money, so I started a GoFundMe to raise the necessary funds, and we ended up raising over £188,000, more than enough to begin the appeal. However, this is where yet even more shady shit happened. Now, one thing to remember is there are periods of anything from 4 to 8 months between each event I'm about to describe throughout this appeals process, because courts take a really long time to do anything. Which is why, even though we started the appeals process in 2018, here we are in 2022, and it's only just finished. Though COVID certainly didn't help, that massively delayed a lot of this process. The way the appeals process works is if you are convicted in a sheriff court, like I was, then you only get the Sheriff Court of Appeals, and that's it. Any other court you can go to the High Court and then the Supreme Court, but the Sheriff Court gets the Sheriff Court of Appeals and nothing else. So, you get 2 bites at the cherry with that, and our first attempt was a flat-out rejection by a single judge that was a decision based purely on emotion and not facts. The first judge basically said, "How dare I appeal my unfair sentence that violated my human rights?" He said that I was lucky all I got was an £800 fine, and then the judge threatened to arrest my lawyer for doing his job. So obviously the Sheriff Court of Appeals is a very fair system and we are off to a great start. Then the second attempt was another rejection, however with a lot less screeching. So after that we decided to make an appeal to the High Court, even though because of the way the law currently is, we actually were not allowed to do that. But we thought, fuck it, let's try it anyway. So we submitted, and after many months, it was a flat rejection from the High Court. They didn't even review the case. We then decided to do something called nobile officium, which is basically we appeal to the highest judges in the land. That's actually what the law says. It's quite an old law. And we were not asking them to hear our appeal. We were asking them if they could arrange for either the High Court or the Supreme Court to hear our appeal. So basically, we stood in front of the highest judges in Scotland to appeal to be able to appeal. They, however, rejected this and said it was out with their power. So we decided to just do a Hail Mary and we sent our case to the Supreme Court, and after many more months, they, like the High Court, gave us a flat-out rejection and they refused to even hear the case, describing my appeal as incompetent, which the press just absolutely ran with. Now, why was the appeal incompetent? We have absolutely no idea. They did not elaborate or explain at all. They just said, incompetent, rejected, and gave us absolutely no explanation as to why. Is anybody else starting to get the impression that the system just does not fucking work? Though I feel that's by design. So, after that point, we could go to the European Court of Human Rights. So, we added someone to our legal team who is an expert in that field, and we started preparing our appeal. Now, one thing to point out is I had screeching idiots online saying things like, oh, he was in UKIP and he hates the EU, but here he is going to the European Court of Human Rights. Oh, yeah, the European Court of Human Rights is a completely separate entity from the EU. It's not part of the EU at all. I mean, it's located there geographically, but it's its own completely separate thing. So we submitted our case, and after very many months, we finally heard back, and it was a rejection to even hear the case. Now, why was this? Well, it turns out we were caught in a complete catch-22. You see, in order to submit your case to the ECHR, you have to first exhaust all domestic remedies first, meaning we have to have at least had a hearing or review in all of the appeal courts in Britain. So that's the Sheriff Court, the High Court and the Supreme Court, all of which we applied to. But you also have to file your case to the ECHR within a certain time period of your last hearing or review. So let's say you got a hearing with the Supreme Court and it was rejected. You then have 6 or 9 months after that rejection date to file with the ECHR. You can't just decide to file your case 5 years later. Now, here was the problem. With the High Court and Supreme Court, we did not get a hearing or review. Those were just outright rejections to even consider the case. We only got a hearing or review with the Sheriff Court, which by this point was over 2 years beforehand. So, the ECHR considered our last hearing or review as the Sheriff Court one. And because courts take so long to do anything, us sending our case to the High and Supreme Courts ate up a shit ton of time because it takes months to get a response. We were well out with the time limit, so they rejected the case. But the problem was, if we just filed our case with the ECHR after the Sheriff Court, the ECHR would have still rejected us because we had not yet exhausted all domestic remedies. They would have said, oh, but you haven't tried the High or Supreme Court yet, do that and get back to us. So we couldn't file the case within the time limit because we had to exhaust all domestic remedies, but in order to exhaust all domestic remedies, we would have to run out the time limit. Catch-22. We were fucked from the start. The system is absolutely broken and does not work. Is everyone starting to understand why I became a libertarian? There is a fantastic book by a man called Hans Hermann Hoppe. It's called Democracy, the God That Failed. You should read it. So, as for what happens now, nothing. There is absolutely nothing I can do now. The state got to violate my human right of freedom of speech by arresting me, branding me as a criminal, and stealing my money from me all over a joke. And they got away with it. They just absolutely got away with it. We do not have a system in place right now to hold the state accountable. And there are a lot of people out there who don't like me who will be really happy about all that, not realising that they are the turkeys voting for Christmas. Because what happens one day when the government decides that the things you say are grossly offensive? What if the government one day decides that advocating for communism, socialism, LGBT, LMNOP stuff, or anything along those lines is now deemed as grossly offensive? Oh, that'll never happen. Well, I also thought that getting arrested for jokes would never happen, yet here we fucking are. Also, you don't get to decide what is grossly offensive. The state does. The courts do. Courts being agents of the state. It's not up to you. It's up to the government. So you sitting there smiling about what happened to me, if it happens to you one day and the way things are going, it probably fucking will, what will you do then? Turns out absolutely fuck all, because the appeal courts sure as fuck won't help you, and journalists will not help you either, even though their very careers literally rest on having freedom of speech. So now we get on to the financial stuff. When I started the GoFundMe, I promised full, complete transparency of all of the funds, and that's what you're getting. My legal team will provide me with a complete financial breakdown report of all of the expenses, which I'm going to post publicly for everyone to see, with sensitive information redacted, obviously. And as I said from the beginning, any money left over from the GoFundMe would be going to charity. I believe the remaining amount is somewhere in the region of £40,000, so fucking a nice whack of money to give to charity. The only thing that I wanted was, since this was a Scottish case, I wanted the charity to be a local one, and ideally I wanted the money to go towards children. Now, this part was a lot harder than I thought it would be, because I selected some charities that I wanted to split the money between, and all of them rejected the donation. Since either they didn't want to be associated with the fascist libertarian over here, or, and this was the reason that most of them gave, because they were terrified of media and journalists coming after their charity and lying about them, which would endanger the charity's future. So everyone, put your hands together and give a big congratulations to the journalists. Congratulations, guys. You actually have children's charities terrified of accepting money to help children. You must be so proud. I did try a good few dozen charities, and they all rejected the donation for the same reasons. But after a lot of work and the help of some friends, I managed to find a charity willing to accept the money. They are called Go Together, and they are based in St Andrew's Episcopal Church in Wishaw. And they do very many things to help struggling people in the local community. Things like arranging fun days out for children in impoverished families who otherwise couldn't afford it. And they also run food banks that provide not just food, but toiletries and other essentials. They also run groups to help families struggling with addiction to get them clean, while also providing for the children in these families. And they provide assistance for people being released from prison to help them get their life back on track and not just end up back in prison. And they plan to open up other types of programs in the future. I have great respect for the work they do and plan to do, so the money will be going to Go Together. And there is also a donation link for them down below in the description. I said there is a donation link for them down below in the description. Do you catch my meaning? Do you understand what I'm saying? There is a donation link in the description box down below. Or if you live locally, you could even go down and volunteer. So after 6 years, all of this bullshit is finally over. We didn't get the result we were looking for, but at least some good came out of this complete fucking farce of a situation. However, all of this proves that freedom of speech, a basic fundamental human right, doesn't exist in this country. Freedom of speech is the human right that all other human rights are built on, and we simply don't have it. We don't have one of the most important human rights. Another problem that this situation highlighted is just how bad our justice system is, and that it's pretty much not at all fit for purpose. Prosecutors can lie and make up any old shit without proof, and when that inevitably convicts you, the appeals process just simply doesn't work. Our state can currently, at will, go around violating human rights, and we have no way to hold them accountable. Why are more people not worried about that? So, how can we fix this? Violent revolution. This is going to be another one of those like, oh, is he joking? Is he being serious? You can never tell with this guy. You never know if he's joking. I know. That's part of the fun. One thing we actually can do is we can make sure that the next generation understand the importance of human rights, and if a society doesn't have rights, then it's not a society, it's a slave camp. You could try to use your vote. Yeah, you can try to use your vote. I'm sorry, I couldn't say that with a straight face. However, pretty much all of the established parties could not give less of a shit about freedom of speech. If anything, all of them are passing even more laws to restrict it even further. But one thing you can do is join the Scottish Libertarian Party, and maybe we can get some people in Parliament that actually give a shit about human rights and freedom. I'll put a link for them down below, and I would like to point out that Go Together are not a politically affiliated charity. They are just a charity. They have no political leanings whatsoever. This part of the video has nothing to do with them. It's more for me. And speaking of me, I'm going to keep making Mad Lads. I'm going to keep making YouTube videos. I'm going to keep doing stand-up comedy. I'm going to stick around and keep entertaining all of you for as long as I possibly can. Because, and let's make it gay in here, I owe it to you. All of you who donated, all of you who supported me, all of you who sent me messages of encouragement, all of you who watch and share my videos and like and subscribe, even though all of those things might feel pretty small to you, they're a very big deal for me. So, to every single one of you who has supported me all the way through this and watched my videos over the years, from me and my family, thank you. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Ollie, this is your fault. But you're a good boy. Heil. Good boy. You as well. Good boy. Fucking troublemakers. And just a little bit of self-promo, I actually have a live event coming up in London on July the 13th. It's the roast of Count Dankula, where a bunch of comedians are just going to absolutely annihilate me for a few hours. So, yeah, I'm gonna absolutely hate it. You, however, will have an absolutely great time. Tickets are still available. I'll put the link for that down below.
It's Count Dankula on YouTube. Everybody just subscribe.